Let's talk about one of the biggest paradoxes in tech today. We've built this thing, artificial intelligence, that's literally designed to think. It's supposed to be a purely mental process. And yet, it has this enormous and mostly invisible physical appetite. When we think of AI, we picture something that lives in the cloud. It feels efficient, clean, almost weightless. It's just code, right? Just data. No physical body, no messy footprint. At least that's the story we tell ourselves. But what if that whole picture is wrong? What if this digital revolution has a very real, very physical price tag that we're only just starting to read? Well, let's find out. So first up, let's get into AI's hidden thirst, because the reality of this supposedly virtual technology is, frankly, pretty shocking. Okay, so here's the fundamental problem. Every single AI model, every chatbot you talk to, it's all running on these incredibly powerful computers packed into massive data centers. These machines generate a ton of heat, and to keep them from literally melting, they need constant cooling, and that cooling often requires huge amounts of fresh water. The scale of this is just staggering. To train just one large AI model can take over 700,000 liters of fresh water. To put that in perspective, that's enough drinking water for 1,000 people for a whole year. And remember, that's just for training one model. And this isn't a static problem. It's getting worse fast. In 2022 alone, Google's water use for its data centers shot up by 20%. As AI gets woven into everything we do, this number is just going to keep climbing. And the total volume? Well, it's truly mind-boggling. Some individual data facilities are using over 1.5 billion liters of water every single year. That's nearly what a small city uses. We're talking city-scale water consumption for a single building. So this virtual technology is having a very real, very physical impact. It's putting serious stress on local water supplies, draining rivers and aquifers, often in places that are already struggling with drought. The digital cloud, it turns out, has a very real-world water line. But why is this happening? To really get to the root of the problem, we need to step back and look at it through a sociological lens, with a little help from a thinker named Max Weber. Weber had this key idea he called rationalization. It's basically our society's relentless obsession with making everything optimized, efficient, and measurable. And AI data centers, they are the absolute perfect example of this. Machines built for one thing: pure, calculated performance. But Weber also gave us a warning. He called it the iron cage. That's what happens when the hunt for efficiency becomes the only goal. We get so focused on making things faster and cheaper that we completely lose sight of the true costs, the ethical costs, the human costs, and the environmental ones. And this forces us to ask a really critical question. In this mad dash to build bigger, faster, smarter AI, are we trapping ourselves in that iron cage? Are we forgetting to stop and ask if this progress is fair, if it's cleaned, or if it's even accountable to anyone? Weber actually gives us a way to think about this. He broke it down into two types of thinking. On one hand, you have instrumental rationality. That's all about the how. How do we make it more efficient? How do we make it more profitable? But on the other hand, there's substantive rationality, and that's all about the why. Why are we doing this? Is it the right thing for society? The challenge for us is to shift our focus from just the how to the why. Now, this focus on pure efficiency doesn't just have environmental consequences, it has social ones too. And another sociologist, Emil Durkheim, helps us see this as a crisis of solidarity. Durkheim was fascinated by the question of what holds a society together, what he called social solidarity. He argued that when you have so-called progress that really only benefits a small group of people while placing a heavy burden on everyone else, like, say, a community losing its water access so a corporation can make more profit, that social fabric starts to rip apart. When that solidarity breaks down, Durkheim warned that we fall into a state of anomie. It's this sense of moral confusion and normlessness, where the old rules just don't seem to apply anymore. And it's often triggered by exactly this kind of rapid, unchecked technological change that makes innovation feel divisive instead of unifying. This shows us that real sustainability isn't just an environmental issue. It's deeply social. It's about making sure progress is shared by everyone, and about actively rebuilding that sense of shared ethical responsibility. So we've kind of diagnosed the problem with a little help from Weber and Durkheim. Now for the important part. What do we do about it? How do we start redefining what smart technology actually means? Well, if we look at the most basic common sense principles of water management, the current model for a lot of these data centers fails on every single count. Equity is violated when water is taken from communities and given to corporations. Efficiency is violated by wasteful cooling systems that just dump the water after one use. And sustainability is violated when water is pumped out of the ground way faster than nature can put it back. So what's the path forward? It's really a four-part strategy. First, we need green AI, designing models that are way more energy efficient from the ground up. Second, we need to use closed-loop cooling systems that actually recycle and reuse water. Third, we have to demand transparency from these companies about how many resources they're actually using. And finally, and maybe most importantly, we have to embed ethics into the very heart of how we develop this technology. Ultimately, this all requires a huge shift in our mindset. The goal can't just be about creating AI that thinks faster. The real measure of progress is creating technology that helps all of us live a little bit wiser. All right, let's pull all of this together and really summarize the true cost of where AI is headed right now. The impact isn't just one thing. It's hitting us on multiple fronts. It's an environmental crisis, speeding up the depletion of water and energy and adding to carbon emissions. It's a social crisis, making water scarcity worse for local people and deepening global inequality. And as we've seen, it's a moral crisis, fraying the very social fabric that holds us all together. Look, AI has incredible, world-changing potential. It could help us solve some of our biggest problems. But that promise is completely meaningless if the technology itself becomes part of the problem. If AI is really going to help save the world, it has to first stop draining it.